Good evening, everybody. This is RJ. Remember the day on St. Patrick's Day when I was saying that I'm going to use my DNA test to get the results? So it's over a month after I sent my saliva to Ancestry.com and finally got the results earlier this week. I am 67% of Italian and Greek. I'm also 17% of British. I am 3% Irish, 2% Western European, as in French, and European Jewish as 1%. And also Iberian Peninsula, 1%. And also I'm 7% West Asian, which breaks down to Caucasus, 6%. In Middle East, 1%, and Southern Asian, 2%, which would be believed to be around India. So as for Italian and Greek, my mother's mother and my mother's father have the Southern Italian origins. My mother's father, Grandpa Anthony Camerata, could have Greek in him because his last name was Cameratos. Camerato is from one of the Greek languages. And also, my grandmother's father, who was an orphan, I don't know if he was born around the Greek communities or somewhere in southern Italy, but anyway, he was brought up and raised by a family called Valentinos. And my grandmother's mother was named Anna Palumbo. Yes, even though it's Italian origin, but somehow many Palumbos were associated with the Greek communities called Greco. And also my father's mother came from the eastern shores of Italy, near Greece, possibly Greek also. Yeah, it's like a mix of Italian and Greek in it. Also, as for the Benrays and the Benros, long ago I thought my ancestors came down a lot earlier, like at the mid-1700s, pushed by the Roman Empire, pushed by the British Empire at the end of the French and Indian War. But it turns out I looked it up about my great-great-grandfather Alfred Benray, who was a police officer in Hudson. The records claim that both of his parents were born in Canada and came straight down at the 1870s. So I was just saying that the two Benrays, one is the Benra, which is travel down through Vermont and spread all over New England and New York and Michigan, Chicago, Illinois. The other Benray has a different story. Long after the majority of the French populations were pushed out, they made room for the Irish, the Scots, and the English. Most of them had mingled into French-Canadian society, adopted the custom, the language, and a lot of them changed their last names to make it sound French. I don't know about the Benray/Benoit, like crisscrossing, but the Benray does have its own origin. Came from northern England and southern Scotland. They can be found in Cumberland, Northumberland, and somewhere I think around Benny and Brocco in Scotland. So yeah, it proves that 20% British DNA shows that I am paternally descended from it. And also, as for Irish, Dad told me that there was somewhere in my paternal grandfather's mother side of the family, either Scottish or Irish, but it's just little. And as for French blood, 2%. It's really difficult to believe that I am half 50% French blooded, which it turns out to be debunked. And also, sadly, we're not part Native American, but I know the other Ben Rays had the part Native American in them, and also part Hispanic, shockingly. I don't know how, but who knows? But it's actually kind of cool. Also, as for Southern Asian, I think it might be responsible for the Greek invaders, probably taking some women back into Greece and then before sailing into Italy, colonize it. So gonna say something about West Asian. I don't know, the Alans, Sarmatians, long before the Arabics occupied. Probably interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting about that. So, my guess is either it's also connected to the Italians and Greeks, or, according to historians, the Scythians, which is another name for Sarmatians and Alans, traveled throughout the Mediterranean and passed through Spain and sailed all the way to Ireland. Yes, it's kind of weird. The Scythians evolve into the Gaels, all that interesting. Also, changed from Seth to Scuth to Scot to Scot. Ireland is actually the birthplace of the Scots also, before moving into Scotland and pushed the Picts down into England. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but it's a lot interesting. And what's really interesting that I learned a lot more about the European Scythian origins of the European nations, including Scotland, England, some Scandinavias, Ireland, even Gaul, probably. And also another thing that I might have West Asian in the paternal side. After the Roman Empire conquered all of the regions on the Black Sea and Caspian Sea, the emperor decided to have the Romans to recruit the over 8,000 Sarmatian, Scythian, Alanic cavalries or soldiers become mercenaries, and then sent the around 5,500 Sarmatians into Britain and started building up the walls, fortresses. 2 big ancient walls. One, the north, called Antonines Wall, and the southern is Hadrian Wall. What's much more exciting is one of the walls had named into the Benray, which is derived from the Old English word Bianon Valley or Wally. Yeah, so it's a lot different than the name Benray Benoit. That explains it. It's not only it's Old English, but it's also Scottish, which is adopted by the Scots. So it's Anglo-Scottish. What's even more awesome is there's King Arthur legends, which is derived from the Summations. That's another story. Beautiful night. So anyway, how you say it? Like King Arthur legends. It started off from the historical author, which is actually named Lucius Artorius Castus, either just a Roman breed or Romanized Sarmatian, whose father was Roman/Sarmatian and his mother was British, I think. And the rest of them are just plain Sarmatians by birth. And they were fighting off both the Celts and the Saxons, and the story goes on. Try watch the old movie called King Arthur. Clive Owen. He's cool. He's really good. He did pull it off really good. I also like him in the Roman armor. That looks nice. So, okay, let's get back to historical facts. Probably shortly after the Roman Empire pulled out of Britain sometime in the start of medieval, I think shortly before that, growing numbers of Sarmatians were mangled into Celts and Romano Britons, and also possibly Scottish. And later on, that's how they started get the name Bianoroli, shortly into Benwell and Benlay. Yeah. So there's two different kind of Benrays. One from Benoit, the other one is from the Wall in England. And I am 70% British after the 67% of Italian/Greek, since I got most of them from my dad's mother and my mother's mother and her father. Oh, it's getting dark out, and I want to thank you for watching this. And as my face is fading into darkness, God bless.